Welcome back to Where Wine Takes You, the podcast that gets behind the polished label and gets us into the cellar, the minds, the hearts, close enough to the people making Paso Robles wine that you can almost feel the purple under their nails. I am your host, Adam Montiel. And look, Paso has always been a place where the people who help build the thing end up pouring wine next to the people brave enough to reimagine it. Today's episode is called Legacy and Liftoff, OGs and New Blood. And this one is not about old guard versus new guard. It's about what happens when memory meets momentum. Think about that. When experience sits right next to ambition. When a guy who has weathered more than one wine business storm in his life shares a glass with a guy launching his own dream right in the middle of one. My guest today, Paul Hoover, owner, winemaker, emeritus, I should say, at Still Waters. He is just an awesome guy. Also with him, Kyle Jury, founder and winemaker at Truss. I've known Paul a long time. He is a farmer, a winemaker, a fisherman, a businessman, and one of those rare people who can explain something complicated without making you feel like an idiot for asking. You know, he's got stories from the early days, a front row view of how Paso became Paso, and a read on this current wine situation that is smart, sobering, funny, and refreshingly free of bullshit. And yes, this is also the man who once bought a giant media cow during our cow parade. Remember those cow parades? They do them in different markets where people will dress them up, and he bought the media one. I'm hosting this event, and he comes up, he goes, "Guess what, baby? I bought you a cow." This cow. It was at the radio station for a long time. And then I did a little heist of it. Well, it's not a heist when it's yours. And now that cow is in my backyard. It's a beautiful piece. So Kyle sitting across from Paul represents really that next surge of Paso talent. A former maybe would-be architect who found a different material to build with. You'll see how architecture is in this guy's blood, but he found a different path. And that path, wine. After nearly 9 years at Booker, Kyle and his wife, Brittany, went all in on Truss, taking over the former TH estate property and building a family brand around it and around art, science, nature, the beauty of structure. He's making estate Rhones, keeping a little coastal Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in the mix, and betting on Paso at a time when a lot of the wine world is seemingly playing defense. So we get into it. The boom, the correction, the inventory pileup, the pressure on growers, why contraction is so much harder than growth when you're talking about a business, and why the next generation is still ready, willing, and just like amped up to take the torch and run. This conversation has history, some stories you're not going to get anywhere else. I'm like, the hairs on my arm are standing up. I'm like, is he bringing up that? Oh, let's go. Hard truths, great wine, a little Cal Poly DNA, and the kind of cross-generational energy that reminds you why Paso's rising tide, that whole thing, it's not just a cute line. It's how this place works. Later on in our Travel Paso Spotlight, we're headed straight into one of Paso's best summer rituals, concerts in the park. Free music, downtown City Park, wine, beer, food, families, friends, that perfect Paso evening moment when the heat drops, the band locks in, everybody's walking there with their chairs, nobody's in a hurry to leave. It's such a great vibe. Concerts in the park. But before we put the OG and the new blood at the same table, let's check the pulse of Paso wine country. Let's hit up our Paso Wine Wire. The Paso Wine Wire. All right, we begin with proof that Paso doesn't live by big reds alone. Third annual Paso Robles White Wine Invitational happening Saturday, August 1st from 4 to 7 at Rava. And this thing has grown from like 7 like-minded wineries sharing an idea into more than 20 producers showing off just how deep Paso's white wine bench goes. I mean, this white wine guild that they've created, they're really focusing on people who don't just have one white SKU in their portfolio, but at least 3. It's really cool. So we're talking some great names too. Paso Terre, Monochrome, Canero, Lone Madrone, Giornata, Union Sacre, Tablas Creek, Via Creek, Thatcher, Alta Calina, Brecken, Hubba, a lot more. You can, we'll put links in the show notes. You want to get tickets to this one? I can't wait. I love white wine, so I'm definitely going to be there. Advance tickets required. It is at Rava. So yes, we love our Syrah. Yes, we love our blends, but on August 1st, the whites are running the room. Don't clip that. That's not any, you get canceled for something like that. Never mind. Just go check the links in the show notes, okay? All right, Marin Vineyard. We had Marin Walgamont on the show. She's got her tasting room in Atascadero. She's part of the Paso Wine crew. Their 2024, remember she does that sparkling Viognier? It's a Petulant Naturel. It's like the very first way they ever made sparkling wine, where primary fermentation happens in the bottle. Girl just won, she got like a gold in the OC Fair commercial wine competition for it. Fantastic. It was also voted best sparkling wine, 2026 Best of the Central Coast Awards. Congrats. Good for Marin. I mean, I remember that tasting it. It was so good. Love seeing this and loved having her on the show before. You got to go back and check that episode and go taste that gold, baby. Yes, links in the show notes to that. Finally, Pink Drank. This is a pool party. It's part of the plan. Dive in, do good, party with a purpose. It's a lot of fun. It's my event, 5th year in a row. It's this Saturday, July 11th. If you're listening to this when it publishes, that's tomorrow. Elks Lodge, 2 to 6 p.m. General admission, 3 to 6. Want to get you into some different producers pouring rosé, cocktails, spirits, beer, wine. It is all for a great cause, the Woods Humane Society. Also, the Slow Elks National Foundation. We do veterans affairs, scholarships for kids, youth activities. But I've always been really tight with the Woods Humane Society, so I'm happy to have them on board. It's a fun event, poolside, little irreverent. It's going to be a lot of who's who there. Tons. And what I love about this event, not to brag a little bit, but not to, as my fiance says, not to toot my own horn, but toot. I've always wanted to have a hand in creating an event that the industry loves. I was just talking to somebody on the phone literally before I opened the mic here about the event, and they're like, this is just one of those events I love pouring at. And the industry loves, so when the industry's having fun, everyone is having fun. So check it out, Pink Drank. Yes, it's BRANK, pinkdrank.org. Links in the show notes, and hope to see you tomorrow.
The Paso Wine Wire.
All right, still ahead on the show again, we're going to be getting into downtown Paso and our Travel Paso Spotlight concerts in the park. It is such a great time. It's so Paso too. So before your next Paso adventure, make sure you start at travelpaso.com. From live music to downtown events, wineries, restaurants, places to stay, and those little local gems you only find when you know where to look. Travel Paso helps you build a trip that feels less like checking boxes and more like actually living here for a minute. Do it like a local. Plan your next escape. Travelpaso.com. All right, today's chat puts 2 different chapters of Paso at the same table, and I love this. Not old school versus new school, more like root system and new growth. Paul Hoover is the owner at Still Waters Vineyard, an estate he built in the El Palmar district after years spent learning the business, learning farming, hospitality, and wine, really from the inside out. He's a Cal Poly Aggie, a lifelong 4-H guy, a farmer who thinks like an engineer, and a winemaker who will be the first to remind you that great wine starts with great grapes, and that ego can get expensive fast. Paul has watched Paso move through the booms, the corrections, planning surges, grape shortages, boardrooms, battles, and more than a few vintages where Mother Nature reminded everyone who was actually in charge. He also has a gift I've always appreciated. He can just make anything sound and feel approachable. He could talk farming, supply chains, inventory, weather, market contraction without making it sound like a lecture. He makes it sound like a story you want another glass for. Next to him in the Slow Cal Studios, Kyle Jury, founder, winemaker for Truss. Kyle came to Cal Poly thinking he might become an architect. That blueprint quickly changed. He found wine, spent nearly 9 years at Booker, learned from Eric Jensen and the team there, and eventually began building something of his own. Truss started small. A couple barrels of Chardonnay, an old high school drawing of a truss bridge, and a family trying to name both a baby and a wine brand at the same time. Now, Kyle and his wife, Brittany, have taken over the former TH Estate property, renamed the vineyard, refreshed the space, and begun the next chapter with the state-grown Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre. And the brand line is beauty in structure. And that structure isn't just in the label or the wine. It's family. It's mentorship. Like this episode, this is Legacy and Liftoff. You ready? Let's go.
So give me that moonshine, we'll be fine. We fast on round till the job is done. Can't die in the trees, the world's amplifying good company.
Well, I thought it'd be really fun to chat, like, and not just like get into the themes of like old guard, new guard, because there's no doubt you can learn a ton from just like, I sit and as you were walking in, I'm talking to Paul before we open the mics. It's just like, oh my God, it's like, I got to record this just for my own mind's retainment. Like it's just so good. And with everything going on and having your finger on the pulse of the business right now. But I just kind of want to see how like, everyone's doing right now. Like Kyle, how is Truss? You're in this, you know, what people remember as the TH Estate. You probably knew Terry Hogue.
Extremely well. Sat on the board with me.
What about when
we took football,
found out he was retiring and this whole transition of this property was going to take place?
Smart.
Yeah.
He's always been. What does that say about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have this brand, Truss. Tell me about like what the ethos is behind Truss before we get into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I started the brand in 2022. So although the brand itself has been around for a handful of years, so we're new to the property as of 2024, which, like you said, was the previous TH Estate. We're now calling it the Truss Vineyard. And now the focus of the brand is the Rhone varieties that we grow on the property. So Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre. But I also am still making a little bit of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Slow Coast, which was kind of the original mindset of where the brand was going to go. At the time when I started the brand, I was working at Booker. And so I didn't want to make wines that I was making during my day job. I didn't want to compete with those wines. So I was making wines that I like to drink at home and that were different. And I wanted to kind of be a part of this newer Slow Coast AVA, which became a thing at that exact same time. And this was always the dream. I didn't anticipate it happening so quickly. So now the focus of the brand is shifted slightly to be more of our estate-driven Rhones.
I love that. Now, you started kind of in architecture, right? Or are you just kind of finding a new material to build with, in this case, wine?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take any stolen valor on my architecture, but I went to Cal Poly with the anticipation or the dream to study architecture and do architecture, and thought my family's in construction and development, and thought that's what I was gonna do, and quickly humbled by that aspiration.
Yeah.
So
you kind of had this DNA, but then you found another way to translate it in a way.
Yeah, and I think looking back, like I don't have a long history in wine or viticulture or farming, and really in general. But kind of looking at what makes up architecture and winemaking, I think, not to oversimplify or generalize the two industries, but there are a lot of similarities I find,
Sure.
like balancing art, science, nature, all of those things. So it's like it was sort of a natural fit that allowed me to be outside and work with my hands and get dirty, all these things that I like to do even though I grew up in the city, like I was always kind of a country kid at heart. And so to be where I am now, it makes a lot of sense, but definitely did not anticipate that when I was growing up.
Where do you think the buzz came from with the brand? I mean, it seems like it's got a really good handle on things in what could arguably be called a questionable time.
I appreciate that. I mean, kind of like what we had just quickly talked about. I think it's like we are sort of, like I said, we're not immune to these times that everyone's sort of experiencing, but I think the fact that we are shiny and new and we are sort of a homegrown product where, although Truss is relatively new, I have been in the area for a long time and making wine in the area for a long time. And so I think there's a lot of support within the community, and not only just within the wine community, but regionally, I think, because people want to support a Cal Poly kid and a guy who's made wine in Paso. And it's kind of, I like to think we stand for all the right things and try to do things the right way. And so I think people are wanting to support us and our story. And then I think you got to make great wines, but I think that's kind of almost a bonus at this point.
Have you ever met Paul Hoover before?
We have crossed paths, but I mean, not enough to, not enough.
Not like this. I love it. I mean, Paul, you've always had this gift of making wine less intimidating, very approachable. It's what I try to do when I started Cork Dorks or with what we do with Where Wine Takes You. So tell me, was this an intention for you, or you've always been just kind of this, this very smart, very serious, but also very chill and very just affable?
Well, I mean, I did go to Cal Poly, and so pretty much had, I'm a farmer, Aggie, 4-H-y dude. So, it started in a weird way. I started making homemade wine when I got out of the restaurant business, because when I ran restaurants, it was free, and really good wine was free. It's part of my job. And so I never really appreciated wine in, my 20s. I don't think a lot has changed demographically. You didn't drink a lot of $100 bottles of wine in your 20s when you're trying to make your car payment. And so I got into...
Or you're drinking whatever you hear on the rap song.
Yeah, I got into it in a weird way. A local businessman here who's still in the area, he sold the Cliffs. Him and John King were partners on it. But I worked for Larry Shupnick in my 20s, and he had the San Luis Bay Inn, and they developed the Cliffs together, and I ran hotels for him and restaurants. And so he was a collector, a full-blown collector. We had 600 wines on the wine list in the early 80s at the San Luis Bay Inn. And we had, movie stars coming up. We were way ahead of the curve as far as that goes. But yeah, crazy.
I had no idea.
Huge inventory. And so...
It's the same Larry Shupnick that Gary Eberly always talks about.
Yeah. He's mentors of both of us. In fact, Gary and I were talking the other day, and he was listing mentors. And clearly, Larry in his 30s ran the Stardust, the Fairmount, and the Aladdin at the same time.
In Vegas?
So when I was bartending for him at the San Luis Bay Inn, and I was getting ready to graduate and go farm cotton for Boswell, because that was what my degree was in, from Bakersfield. And he looked at me, and I was head bartender, and he got to know me because I was head bartender up. And it was the most expensive restaurant in town. Like I say, most successful, but most expensive. So it was very, but Tooney and Bruce Bro and all of them were all, but we knew everybody. And so
talk about the old McClintock's folks.
Everybody. Yeah, and Alex. And so he came up one day and he goes, "Hey, you're graduating soon, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go back to Bakersfield." I got a little drawl because I'm from Oldale, And so I said, "I'm going back to Bakersfield." And he goes, "Why the hell would you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's where the work is." And he goes, "Nope." I said, "What do you mean, nope?" He goes, "I'm going to hire you and teach you the hotel restaurant business," because he goes, "I like you." And he goes, "I just bought a hotel in Texas, and I bought another hotel." And he says, I'm only going to be here one day a week. And I need a kid like you that, not afraid to get his hands dirty. And I said, "Well, I'm your man." Mm-hmm. And so that's where it started. Now, I was a beer drinker. No big surprise coming from Bakersfield. And so my wife and I got married really young, super young, 22. And so one day when I got a lot more responsibility, he said, "You need to learn more about wine." And I'm like, "Nah, I know enough, because I'm running the whole place." He goes, No, you need to learn about wine." And I said, "Well, I don't know how that's going to happen." So he put me on a wine allowance. I've told this story on the air a million times, but he said, "You're getting a raise, here's your, but $150 a month. You can go into the inventory." Now, I'm talking a $400,000 inventory at cost, 600 wines from all over the world.
Wow.
And he used to go up to Napa and buy pallets, knowing that a winery like his was going to become successful. Mm-hmm. And he would meet him when he was just opening and go, "Hey, I'll buy a pallet of that wine from you." Then we'd store it. Then we'd store it for 5 years. Well, so when I got my $150 wine alliance, I told my wife, she goes, "Well, we don't drink wine." I said, "Yeah, well, we're supposed to learn about it." So I would go to the inventory, and mine was the cost. So I would look at the list, and we're selling Farniente Chardonnay, for $30 back in the day, and it was like $8, and then Rutherford and William Hill, and all over the world. So I'd build my little case of wine. And then I'd go home, and that's what we'd drink. Case of wine, not a bad deal when it's free like that.
Yeah.
And I'm talking wines that today would all be easily
crazy,
$200, $300, $400 a bottle.
So you got like this education.
So it's very habit forming, is what I tell people, especially when it's free. And so then grew in that company quite a bit. Got tired of travel, wanted to get closer to home. but there's really no way when you're running hotels. I mean, there was no Zoom back in the day.
Yeah.
So I was on the road. We had 2 airplanes, and I flew them, and this, I was all over. Just like Gary, when
You
he
flew
flies-
too?
Oh Jesus, yeah. So
Oh my God.
well, it's too expensive to have a pilot, so because you're gone all the time. So we had one, the company pilot, but I flew most of the time myself.
Wow.
And so I just got burnt out in my 30s of never being home because I'm pretty much a family guy. So that's when I changed careers. Greg Morris here in town, Morris Garitano.
Yeah.
I was his biggest client as a company. And so he'd always tell me, hey, if you ever get sick of that friggin' hotel business, I got a job for you. Well, so one day I said, you serious about that? And he goes, yeah, damn serious. Are you serious? I said, well, I'm kind of thinking of it because Larry was making some changes, needing to do some things. So anyway, long story short. So then I went into the hotel business and ended up being CEO of Morris Garitano. But still wanted to do something with wine. I loved wine. Well, a buddy of mine was assistant winemaker at Wild Horse, and he said, hey, we can make wine. You're an engineer. I'm an engineer. It's not that hard. And you know all the growers, because I knew Dante Ducey and everybody in town. And he says, you can get good grapes. That's really the secret. And I'm like, no, it's harder than that. He goes, no, it really isn't that hard. Because you get really good grapes and we buy good barrels. You got a beautiful facility.
Just don't mess it up.
Yeah, just don't mess it up, And so he says, with your engineering background, we'll be good. So I started this little, backyard winery, but pretty techie. And then I got hooked on growing my own grapes, and learning everything there was about growing grapes. And then started.
Is it just this idea of being like vertically integrated? I want to do it all.
Yeah, engineering thing. Yeah. And so I want to do it all. And, no excuses, wanted to, and so, and it's it's been around before Christ was born. So, it's an easy thing to find things to read about.
Yeah.
And so where it really went awry, that's why I call the business, egonomics at time. You get your ego involved in the business.
Love that.
So in 2000 or maybe 98, and this is a cool story if there's time. So when I was out getting grapes from Dante Ducey and I was in my, early 30s, and one time his granddaughter worked for me, Michael's original wife and Michael Ducey of that side of the family. So she was working for me. She goes, Grandpa, I think I can get you some grapes. And I said, you can give me Ducey grapes? She goes, yeah, you got to kind of come out on a different day, Do you want to see Toby seeing you picking up grapes? And I said, and it was true, by the way, because everybody was on allocation back then. And I wish we were there today. And so I went out one day. I got my little ton. I'm making grapes. And so Mindy said, hey, she goes, Grandpa wants to get you some more grapes. And I said, well, sure he does. It's a good year. He goes, no, you don't understand. Second crop, Zinfandel, really small berries. The family's picking for the family, and they want to pick another half ton for you. And I said, all right, what the hell? Okay. I don't want to make him mad at me. So I go out there and no shit. There's picking bins that the family hand-picked, not bins, trays.
Yeah.
So there's my trays on the floor and the family's trays. And so I go over with my refractometer and I'm starting to check stuff.
Yeah.
And pretty soon here comes Dante. I love the man. And he came over and he goes, boy. I said, yes, sir. He goes, what are you doing?
It's ready, trust me.
Yeah. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm checking the bricks. He goes, are you now?
Yeah.
And he said, do you know I picked this special for you because it's from all, and he goes, you know nothing about Zinfandel, right? I go, I know nothing about Zinfandel. He goes, well, those bricks are all over the map because you're going to drive yourself crazy. He told me this. He said, put your toys away.
Yeah.
And he said, you're a good winemaker. Go home and make wine. And he said, I wouldn't have called you if I didn't think you were a good winemaker. And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this is where the story gets fun. So I went home, didn't have to adjust nothing. It was like perfect because it was from 29 bricks to 21 bricks to all over the map. And so anyway, I make this wine. And then 2 years later, maybe 3 years later. So I'm entering my wines in the fair, home winemaker. And I'm taking kids to the fair as a 4-H leader. Because I've got, I'm 4-H in my veins. So I'm up there showing, and that's in the good old days when we used to camp. So I'd take my wines and I'd enter them in the fair. And that was something for me to do while I was up there all week, Well, so one day my buddy comes walking into camp, is what we used to call it. He goes, Hoove. He goes, yeah. He goes, you won the whole fair. I said, get out of here. I said, my cab? Nope. And I said, these are all the ones I grew. My Syrah? He goes, nope. And I said, well, what one? He goes, your Zinfandel. And I was like, that damn Dante. He knew. I still have bottles of that, by the way, is still drinking.
Oh, cool.
Amazingly.
Really?
Yes. And so the cool part, so that's when I got the bug and went, well, I'm pretty good at this, that's the ego side going. And so then I, started thinking, well, maybe when I retire, I want to do something. The fun part about this story too, my son has a ranch in town. He sells his fruit to Dow, but he buys Sauvignon Blanc from me. And he won Best White Wine at the fair this year
Is that right?
Which is kind of cool. Kind of
Oh, that's
generational.
awesome. What's his brand?
His brand is just Hoover Home Ranch.
Is that what it's called? Like this Hoover's Home Ranch?
Yeah, but
Sauv Blanc?
it's not. It's home winemaker, not.
Oh, so he won the home.
He won, but there's some pretty darn good wines.
heck yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yes, right.
And then I got all mad at him. I said, "Well, did you tell anybody where you got the grapes?" He said, no.
Like father, like son. Look at that. You guys both won the same award.
So that's when
what a story.
Then so I knew Gary really well, and knew it's pretty. I mean, I knew Nelson Bimmer. I knew everybody because I was carrying their insurance. And so when the opportunity of a downturn happened, which was 2002, not as significant as this downturn at all, but there was the same problem that I was talking to you about earlier, where growers that had been selling their grapes consistently, wineries like taking them out to dinner to try to buy grapes, that can turn and you get into a supply and demand problem. And then growers that were getting, and this is in the day, $2,000 a ton back in 2000, the market went to $500 a ton. And I was telling you back then it was about $800 a ton to farm, lots changed. And so those growers that then were like, well, what am I going to do? A lot of them bailed back then and sold their land at a pretty good price. And that's how we bought Still Waters. I wouldn't have, and I never, ever would have bought 60 acres of grapes. But they were 5 years old. They were beautiful.
Yeah.
And I needed 20 acres is what I needed.
Right.
But it was just a screaming buy. And
it's so interesting. What is it like how to listen to stories like this? And I mean, this is obviously something like your heart, both of you guys are just ignited by this business, this wine that's growing, all of it. And you get to hear kind of like, I mean, because these are kind of some of the more fascinating stories about how this area became this area that is someone like you, fell in love with to wanted to be a part of.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of an old soul at heart anyway. And so just to hear somebody who's kind of been around for a long time and seen it and seen the development of this area is like, it's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool to hear the excitement and passion that he still has for making wine and for Paso and the Central Coast. And so it's rejuvenating and kind of it's exciting, and it kind of just gets you more motivated to keep going.
Before we get into the wines, I'm excited to talk about this white wine in a second. It's super good. I want to ask though, and put our fingers on the pulse of, and it's almost like it's been going on, Paul, so long that like we're all talking about it. And that's just like putting your finger on the pulse of the business right now. And I want you to break it down. You ask 10 different people what's going on. You get 11 different answers. I mean, is it a Gen Z? Is it GLP-1s? Is it cannabis? Is it ready RTDs? These ready to drink cocktails? Is it the WHO putting money behind saying alcohol is bad for you? Is it what is it? And it might be a little bit of a lot of these things, Paul. And I want you to give it to me. I want you to let me know what you're seeing and let us understand this a little better.
Well, it is definitely a giant change. I mean, I have run multiple businesses, and I told you earlier. So it started with COVID. I can remember the day that we had to lay off our part-time tasting room employees. Obviously, all our vineyard employees and our winemaker and everybody else was permanent. But I remember that day, telling my wife, I'm like, oh, what the hell we're going to do? And then we still distribute a little bit of wine directly to restaurants, friends that own restaurants, which is fun. And then we go there for dinner and usually eat more than we give them in wine. But anyway, it's fun. And you get to see friends. And so she was driving over to Cayucas to deliver some wine over there. And I'm not
What restaurant?
I'm not exaggerating. Oh, there was Cavalarian, the Hanchets, good friends of ours. And so, it was the first day that we were closed, and phones start ringing. So I don't have
March 15th, March 17th.
Yeah.
So
we're closed. And I'm like, well, I'll go down and, answer the phones, because we didn't have anybody answering the phones. Well, phones start ringing. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? So I started taking orders, and I am not exaggerating, and so I sold like $2,500 worth of wine in like 4 hours on the phone. And that's a lot back in the day. And it's not, so I called my wife. I said, I think we're going to be okay, and so what happened was, I don't know that anybody realized, and this is where things have changed. You couldn't get your bartender to come make you a craft cocktail and shake it for you on the couch during COVID. You couldn't get really beer and hard alcohol delivered to your doorstep very well. So just picture this. All of a sudden, wine became something that we were already there. We already knew how to do it. It was easy. We already had lists of thousands of people that we could solicit and say, oh, by the way, while you're sitting at home, why don't you take us up on this deal? So we created a total artificial market where the ones that were already buying from us, the boomers, they were doing what they were doing. But it was kind of my joke. It was like toilet paper first, and then we better get some alcohol.
Yeah, right.
We don't know where this thing's going,
Real.
and if it gets bad, we're going to run out of alcohol. That's a big problem.
Right.
So it was kind of that phenomenon.
We're going to be distilling the toilet paper.
Yeah. And so, you think, why did people go so goofy over toilet paper? Well, you run out of it. You might figure that out, So anyway, it was just goofy. And then it went on a lot longer than we sort of anticipated, especially here in California.
Yeah.
And then, as I told you, we make a slow product. So, for both of us, we're a slower process. But I'm 28 months in the barrel. And so, I'm 36 months. Regular distribution's about 12 to 18 to be profitable because, as I told you, storage is a third of the cost. So here we're used to growing, which I had done every year since we'd been open. At that time we'd been open, I don't know, whatever now, what do we say? How many years ago was that? Like 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was been open 18 years. So we were growing, 10% per year. Wine club's growing, everything's growing, everything's easy. And I've always told people this, any business is easy to run when it's not growing too fast and it's growing, but it's not contracting.
Mm-hmm.
Contracting businesses are very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I've run a few of those. And so we were just growing along. So what you did as a winery, you're like, okay, if we're at 2,000 cases today and we're growing at 10%, well, then it's not rocket science. We both went to Cal Poly, but that sounds like we need about 2,400 cases 2 years from now. And so where our goofy industry did from Gallo to Treasury to Constellation to all of us, and I don't mean that they're goofy, I don't know that anybody thought about it too much because all of a sudden I went from a 3,000 case winery to 4,800 cases in like 9 months. So it's burning through my inventory, and I can't just kind of speed it up, without really monkeying with the product. If I would have went to 18 months, that's not the same product. And so all of a sudden we're like, holy crap. So we all start gearing up, not knowing where it's going. I say we all, but definitely a lot of us like me. And so then people started planting vineyards and everything was on fire, and we got lazy. Because we didn't have to do anything to sell it other than answer the phone. We had to make a good product, but we got lazy. And so then coming out of COVID, what happened that I don't know that any of us all anticipated, I call it the I Love Lucy movie. We've got 2.5 years worth of inventory that's coming down the assembly line because we all never thought about, well, what the hell happens if we come out of COVID and then we have the millennials and then we have the GLP-1 drugs and then we have, inflation and all kinds of other stuff. We weren't thinking about any of that. So of all the adjustments I've seen in my professional career, this is a big one that if you would have told everybody, okay, we're going to come out of COVID and we're all going to shrink back to where we were potentially, meaning if you're not the brand new shiny penny, I'm jealous, but we're going to shrink back to where we would have been if COVID never happened. Meaning if COVID never happened, I wouldn't have grown to 4,800 cases. I would have been just trucking along.
Yeah.
And storage is super expensive in our business. You just don't go build another $2 million barrel room. It's a big deal. Mine's inexpensive at $2 million, but that's how much my barrel room costs. So anyway, all of a sudden here we are. We're like, and this is not a little localized commodity. That's why people are trying to figure out maybe we grow truffles here in town or something. Yeah. But so the growing side of the business went from 25,000 acres when I opened in 2002, and the market was depressed at that point. Because people weren't planting a whole lot of new acres. To then we hit this artificial phenomenon, and now we finished at about 40,000 acres before, kind of this whole I Love Lucy movie started. And then we've always had the ability here in Paso to sell wine to Napa at a really reasonable price.
You were doing it forever. Richard
so-
Charette days, right?
Forever.
Yeah.
And worst case, if there was a big crop, that's like people keep talking about this is going to adjust. This is not the old days of where we'd have a big crop and we didn't know what to do with it. So we'd make brandy out of it, meaning the industry would consume it.
Right.
Well, no, this is now the industry doesn't want it, which is the reason that the Gallows, the largest wine company in the world, is downsizing their number one selling product, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think is their High Noon or whatever, that one alcohol they make in a can. So they're having to adjust very quickly. So
what do you make of when you see, and I'm looking for the numbers right now, where like you see like wine is down X%, but like Paso is only down a hair. Like Paso outperforms every other wine community in California.
And where I think wine is a difficult product to evaluate. It depends on the market and the tier of what's going on there. So a lot of those demographics come from our POS machines, and our POS machines are all networked, and then we got all that data. So when I say POS, point of service, our tourists, we're not down 30% in tourists. We're probably up in general tourism. And so in the retail direct to the consumer side of the business, it's not off very much. And Paso's doing better than most because of the value aspect. And we're still the shiny new penny in the wine industry, as a region.
That's a great
so we all hear every day, oh my God, I'm never going to go there again. I won't say where there is, but I'm not going there again. This is where I'm coming. And we've got beautiful hotels and great restaurants, and we're 20 miles from the ocean, and it's one of the prettiest oceans in the world.
Right.
And so we will survive, those of us that kind of grasp that tourism side. Now, if you're Gallo and you owned the 700-acre vineyard across the street from me, that's a tough challenge at $5 million a year to farm that property and then go, well, we don't need grapes right now. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. They don't shut off. If you farm them even for a year, sort of half-assedly, you're never going to make a great wine again.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you can in 10 years, but no, balance is so critical.
So these grapes are so specific and temperamental that you do one off year and don't give them the love that they need, it will never be quite the same.
Yes.
Wow.
They're dialed to being in a zone. And I mean, unless you're making a $15 bottle of wine and you're pushing it.
Yeah.
That's different. But even then, if you're doing those and you want to turn around and make those a premium bottle, they're too vigorous.
Yeah. You said something off the air that it used to cost $3,000 an acre to farm. Yeah. Now it's about 10
at least.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then if you go to the west side where they have, steeper acreage, hills and more. That's why I got rid of one of my hills. I told you, I had 3 acres over on a terrace that nobody would drive but me. They're like, boss, no, I don't want to drive that vineyard.
Dangerous.
Dangerous. And I don't want them driving it either. But I'm 68, so it was a little easier in my 40s.
Did you almost
twice?
Really?
Yeah.
You actually did or almost did?
What you learn to do if you drive a lot of heavy equipment is it's very difficult. But as you're starting to roll, you don't turn away from that roll. You turn
into it,
down the hill.
Oh, wow.
Through rows of grapevine.
Oh, no.
The instinct is as you're going over is to turn the other way, and then that's how people die.
Did you ever have some crazy story? And I love these stories with like Eberly or like Toby as a bunch, or like where like some hose breaks in the cellar, some tank flies open, or Kenny Volk, the earthquake, but like any crazy cellar story where things just went like crazy effed up.
I have so many, but I mean, I have one that I sent a message to Chris Eberly, which he and I are very close.
Yeah.
Gary's winemaker.
No relation, by the way.
Yeah. So we have stories. Sorry about my voice. So anyway, I called him and left him a message coming down here because we all have those years.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite, Eberly stories was it has to do with Merlot, in that, Dow I was selling to Dow in that era. So they were buying Merlot. This was 18, by the way. And so, all of a sudden I get a call from Daniel Dow in the morning, and I was selling him, and he goes, Paul, you hear how short, this is that year, by the way. It looks kind of okay, and it's not. And you've been doing it as long as me. The clusters don't weigh anything. And so there's hardly any fruit out there this year, which is a good thing. And of course, unless you're a grower trying to sell it by the pound. But actually the industry could use a bad crop, which is where we are.
Interesting.
And I think pretty bad. So this is a fun story. So anyway, I get a call from Daniel Dow, and he says, Hoof, he goes, man, it's light. And I said, well, duh. I've been trying to, you're an old farmer. I've been trying to tell you that, Daniel. And he goes, I need more fruit. He goes, give me more. What do you have? And I said, well, I don't have anything, but I'm a grower and you got to realize I got 3 years worth of, I'm like a chipmunk. I got 3 years worth of acorns, and you got Daniel Dow saying, I don't care the price. I need fruit. And I'm like, well, let me see. I can give you a little bit of my Merlot.
Look behind this curtain.
Right.
Yeah. And so he goes, I'll take it. And I won't say on the air, but he gave me this crazy price, like not double what he was contracted for that year, but a lot.
Damn.
And so later in the day, I call his manager of all his farms, and I said, hey, I hear it's short. She goes, yeah, it's short. I said, I hear it's really short. She goes, how'd you do that? I said, well, Daniel just called me and begged me for 5 tons of Merlot. And Merlot was not, the hot varietal in 18, by the way. And she said, well, did you sell it to him? And I said, yeah, but at a pretty good price. And she said, no. And I said, yeah. She goes, did you get that in writing? And I said, I won't use her name either, but Mindy, I do not need anything in writing from Daniel Dow. I said, we're good. She goes, I don't know about that. She goes, I'll call you back. So she calls me back, and 10 minutes later, she goes, sure as shit. But he said, he told you, boo, better not tell anybody when he paid for those grapes. I said, okay. I said, we're good. So this is a true story. 3 hours later, 2:00 in the hour, I'm sitting in the parking lot at the tasting room. My phone rings. I hit him. It's Chris Everly. I said, Everly, what's going on? He goes, man, it's short. Well, here I am again, Mr. Grower. I'm like, yeah, I heard that earlier today. and he said, no, it's really short. I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, and this is my favorite story. He said, I didn't hit the cooling jackets on my Syrah pick off the ranch. And the cooling jackets, if you picture a big tank, they're not all the way top to bottom.
Yeah.
They're in the middle.
Yeah.
And they're at about a third is where you hit the cooling jackets.
Yeah.
Well, if you start to ferment a red wine and you can't cool it down,
Cooking it.
it's not a good situation. It'll blow the tank up. So I said, damn. And I'm always joking with him. I said, well, you want me in some of my little small tanks? I'll roll them over for you there. And he's like, shut the F up. And I said, well, you're serious. He goes, I'm really serious. He goes, I need anything red. And I'm like, oh, that's a qualitative description of a wine. And I said, seriously? He goes, I'm not kidding. I said, well, man, I don't have anything. You know how short it is. I need mine. And he's my best customer. So I said, I'll give you what I gave Daniel. And he goes, what'd you give Daniel? I said, Merlot. And he goes, oh, Jesus, that's a tough sell. And I said, I know it's a tough sell because I said, I know Gary does not like Merlot.
Yeah, right.
And he hates Merlot. And so he said, I'll take it. And I said, whoa, no. I said, you go talk to the old man because I've known Gary for 45 years.
For sure.
And I said, I want an approval from the old man. And he says, all right, I'll call you back. So anyway, he gets it. And they've been buying Merlot from me ever since, by the way.
Oh, that's funny.
Gary doesn't like me saying that on. You'll never see the M word on a bottle of. Well, actually, oh crap! And I went over there 2 weeks ago, and he made a clone-free cuvee that's with Merlot in it.
No,
yeah. And so
you're turning it around.
Yeah, and I was even with the old man. I was like, "Did you know he made this?" Because he actually made a Merlot blend like this one. But yeah, so then when I talked to him today, this is all what's fun about the industry. I told him, even though nobody's buying grapes, I said, this is one of those anything red years.
Yes.
I said, you better get your reservation in, And so I haven't heard back from him.
That's so funny.
Because it can hammer you pretty quick.
Oh.
So the West Side deals with this a lot more because they've got ups and downs climatically.
Yeah.
And they got to deal with a few more challenges than we have. But it's pretty short right now, which is kind of a solution in a way.
Yeah, this is so much fun. I want to talk about the wines. This is a Sauvignon Blanc, Still Waters. I'll go through what I like the Sauvignon Blanc because I'm not a big fan of and I know a lot of people are, it's all good, but like the gooseberry, the grassy, this is citrus, this is tropical. I mean, this is like crushed by a pool.
So been making white wines this way forever. Again, I told you I wasn't professionally trained. I was just trained by, whatever we did at the time. So I started back in those days. I told you the story. I fell in love with Farniente, barrel fermented Chardonnay. And then I learned a lot about white wines and barrels and stuff. So the traditional reason that they put Chardonnay in a barrel, in Burgundy was to soften the barrel so you'd have a perfect barrel for Pinot. That was the reason,
Right.
main reason. And so I kind of adopted that, century old, technique in saying, well, I like that. I'm going to age my red wines longer, which is a problem if you're a small operation. You can overdo it pretty easy. And so I started taking all our new barrels coming in, and I'd put white wine in them for about 3 months, but not malolactic. I'd do it in January cold because I have big cold rooms. And so I liked the crispness of this style, but we make a malolactic wine, but I didn't want my wines. So I started doing it with, Sauv Blanc, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, everything.
What do you like about this white wine, Kyle Jury?
That's funny because you say, because like when I first tasted it, I was like, oh, it seems like there is a little bit of oak there,
Yeah, the finish.
but definitely not in your face, which is not necessarily the norm for a Sauv Blanc. And I really enjoyed it. And it's like, oh man, this is like a tasteful touch that you don't typically get, because Sauv Blanc could be kind of a little bit too much. I'm also not a fan of those super grassy ones, and
Right.
this one is a super easy drink, but also has
Super good.
some serious characteristics with it having that small touch of oak on the finish.
What do you do this for a bottle?
It's 28 retail. It's tasting room, and yeah, this is
Beautiful.
what. Like I say, we're not.
Bring it to the beach, bring it to the lake, bring it to Gary's Pond.
And we're not
Let's
in a
go.
lot of restaurants, but I mean, right now I'm trying to keep.
But you're in Beta's Beer Garden.
Yeah, I'm
Slow.
everywhere. Yeah. So,
So tell the story. So right before, I'll tell it real quick. Right before we went on the air, you were telling me how you got these wines, and you were doing some other business down here, and you had to find one of your accounts to get this wine from. You went to my friends at Beta.
Mm-hmm.
They have a great little German spot in the Lowborough neighborhood of Slow called Beta's Beer Garden.
Right.
And it's a German spot, just fantastic people, fantastic food. And you bought 2 of your bottles.
Yeah, they've been. So the story on Betas
for the show.
Yeah, well, the story on Betas is we've not been in restaurants other than my very good friends.
Yeah.
But that's changing a little bit right now because I can go talk to my friends and say, "Damn it, I need a bottle of wine on your list."
Yeah.
And so anyway, we've been in Betas for 15 years, and so I'm sitting down here doing business today. And all of a sudden, I went to lunch, over at Nicola's because he got married at my place, and I was over there, and I'm trying to get him to buy some wine too. and so, if you're listening, Nicola, please call me back. But so anyway, I'm over there, and I go, "Crap! I didn't bring any wine," and I'm just being honored that you're asking me to come down. And I'm thinking, this ain't gonna work. And so I'm going, and my wife's hour and a half away. And so I said, what am I going to do? And then I went, wait a minute, I'll go to Beta's. So I go over there, and he goes, Paul, what are you doing? I said, well, I got a favor to ask. And he goes, what's that? I said, I'm going to be talking about wine, and I didn't bring any. I said, and I'm a good old boy, but I said, can I, this is the only 2 wines they carry.
Did he charge you retail? Or did
No, gave me happy hour price.
There you go. That's good. Nice guy.
Yeah.
I love this. Well, Beta's Beer Garden, and remember, it's German, so, and I want to give them a shout out because they're just so good. And Beta's a great guy. It's like Bier, like it's spelled like the German way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just a super cool situation. This guy started watching like football, like soccer, football, and having beers in his backyard, and it became so hot. You know the story, and like Beta's Beer Garden was born because he just had this neighborhood vibe, and people loved being around him and watching.
Oh, you ought to see it now. I went in there the other day to deliver wine, and it's World Cup.
Oh my God!
Shit, I can't even get into the bar. And I'm like, what?
Good for them.
Yeah, and then I went over there today, and it wasn't as crowded. He goes, these are reruns.
Yeah. Lunch is great over there.
Americans are out.
And again, I'm giving some love to a place in San Luis Obispo, even though we're all about Paso. Talk about raw materials. This is a Mourvèdre-led wine right here. Mainly Mourvèdre, little Grenache, little drop of Syrah, but this is really good. Tell me the story behind this one.
Yeah, so the 2024 vintage was, like I kind of alluded to earlier, is our first vintage on the property. So this is sort of our inaugural release of red wines from the estate. So we kind of led with 4 wines. So we have a Syrah, a Grenache, this sort of this blend, which is, like you said, 50% Mourvedre, 45 Grenache, and only 5 Syrah. And then we have kind of a sort of our reserve or kind of our club exclusive wine, which we'll try later, called Beyond Reason, which there's no rule on that wine other than it's only 50 cases a year. So it's really, really small lot. And it's just my 2 favorite barrels of the vintage. And 24, it happened to also just be Syrah. But the raw materials is always sort of a GSM blend, or MGS in this case. And it's always, I say always, it's our first one. And it's going to be the case in 2025 as well, where it is, the base is Mourvedre. And it's kind of fun because I really like Mourvedre. I think this property does really well with Mourvedre, and you always see the Grenache driven GSM. So it's kind of fun to be a little bit different in that regard. But the irony is, it's probably our lightest wine, which is kind of cool. And so like the vineyard itself is, I mean, I come from Booker. We've made some pretty big wines. And so
Eric's on the boat. He said, back in the day, we used to make rocket fuel.
yeah, jet fuel. That's like
jet
rocket
fuel, right?
jet fuel. That's like
Yeah.
that was definitely a term of endearment for sure. But
they've even evolved.
100%. Yeah, I think
Most of,
I mean the industry, I mean, or the region is sort of, and I think it's
that
just
passive restraint, I call it.
Yeah,
You reel it in a little bit,
for sure.
man, you get some beauty.
Because you have the horsepower there, but if you can sort of add in a little bit of balance and acidity and freshness to, I always say, like, I want this to go with the meal, not be the meal.
Sure.
And so, but also it should have the integrity to, if you want just a glass, like you should be completely okay and be fine with just having a glass as well. And so the name Raw Materials comes from, like, kind of how we talked about earlier, is like, I just want, if you can make good wine with good grapes. I mean, making it's the easy part. And so I think that because we have a representation of our 3 red varieties that we're growing on the estate, if you start with the best raw materials, you're sort of in the driver's seat to make a great wine. So we're calling the blend the raw materials because it has each of our varieties that we're making.
Well, tell me about the art on the front. What are we doing? Like, especially with this one that I just poured, this your club
Beyond
one?
Reason.
Beyond Reason, the club one. Beautiful bottle, beautiful thing. Let me see the art. Yeah. So that's kind of like, they're both similar but different.
Correct. Yeah. So the goal with the label is, I mean, also going back to
Structure,
to marketing, and yeah.
Trust.
So there's like there's definitely a underlying theme of lines and architecture and structure.
When you hear Truss, what do you think of, Paul? You think support. What do you think of?
Truss is in a big building.
Oh, you think of Truss. Okay.
Both of our Cal Poly background.
Yeah, right. And that's what a truss really is. It's
supports.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, there's
sphere.
many definitions. Our personal definition was when I started the brand. I mean, my wife and I were expecting our first child, and so not only were we laying in bed at night thinking of baby names, but we were trying to think of a name for this brand, of this wine that we had made, which was just 2 barrels of Chardonnay. And
2 birds with 1 stone, baby name.
Exactly.
Truss. Call the baby Truss.
And so I'd come across a drawing that I did from a drafting class in high school. And I was like, she had me cleaning the house, getting ready for the baby. And
you have a boy or a girl?
We have one of each now.
Oh, wow.
But
Truss and Tress.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
But so the truss being a triangle in the shape, it was a perfect representation of what our new family was going to be. So it was 3 sides. It was my wife, myself, and then our daughter Nora, kind of completing the structure, and also sort of an homage to my affinity for architecture and all of that. But it sort of evolved into this whole thing, and like you said, supportive. So it's like Paso is such a community and such a cool place where we all support each other. It's sort of an all-inclusive representation of Paso as well, because I think there's, I mean, I get a lot of credit for making these wines and helping grow this fruit and all of that, but there are so many hands that touch this bottle, like these grapes, to make this. And so you get a lot of credit as a winemaker, and you get a lot of blame as a winemaker. But I think it's important to say that, like, to bring this bottle of wine took so much more than just me being here.
It's beautiful.
It is.
You know, I consider like lots of architectural kind of people in your family and this stuff. When you didn't follow that path, or maybe it presented a situation where like I'm going to choose a different path. Were there some in your family that you worried? And this is more a you question, not a them question. You worried like, oh, I'm not fulfilling what I should, or I'm not following in the footsteps. And then what was it like when you take these, like this threaded DNA of this in you, but turned it into something like wine? And now all of these folks get to see, wow, look at Kyle's idea of structure performed in a different way, like translated in a different way.
I mean, that's a great question. I think that, sure, I think there were some side eyes when you're like, oh, what, you're getting into the wine industry, like, but not due to lack of support, because I've had the great support my entire life from everybody in my life.
Yeah.
So I've always had the encouragement to do whatever I've wanted. It was more just the unfamiliarity of what this industry entails and how does that relate to a successful financial career, or how do you raise a family making wine? And just because we didn't come from that. But now that I think that I've had a lot of great luck, but I think a lot of good luck has come from working hard too. Yeah. So I think you kind of create your own luck in a certain way.
I love that. And I was thinking that after losing my dad like a month ago, I feel like I've said this ad nauseum as I talk about him. He made his own luck. Mm-hmm. And at some point we figured out he ran out of it, but like he made his own luck for so long. And I love people that grab life by the horns, no matter what it means, Paul, and they make their own luck. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's been a way that I've been remembering him a lot lately. I love that you said awesome. that literal sentence that I've been thinking of. This wine's really pretty too. Paul, tell me what you thought about that first red wine, and I'm getting into the second one, the Beyond Reason.
Yeah, no, I think back at Terry and the property and the area, and he should take a lot of credit for taking that. And this is a very good wine. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, there's times I feel, some wine, this is a very, very nice wine. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. And so it's difficult. And I tell people this all the time, what's the difference between, El Pomar and Creston and Willow Creek. And I was involved in the AVA committee. I mean, me and, Robert Haas and Jerry and everybody saying, we got to quit talking about what side of the freeway we're on. This is really stupid.
Well, for a while, it was East and West, Cal. Do you know this?
Yeah,
it was like Tupac and Biggie.
This is really stupid, and so we'd have these meetings but I grow the same varietals, but they don't like it over in Bordeaux. And so I can make a great cab and I can make some pretty great wines, but these grapes are very distinctive of Willow Creek and knowing how to work with the grapes. I'm really pleased to hear him say, what he's doing there, because, it's critical. And I think at some point in this business, you've got to decide who you're going to be, what you're going to be, where you're going to go. And it took me too many years, but, and I'm still searching. But this is a beautiful representation of classic Rhone Willow Creek fruit. Very well done. I mean, he should not poo-poo the fact that you could, people can buy grapes from over there and try to do it too.
Yeah.
But this is a really beautiful wine. A very, very well deserved his success. And as I was telling you before, who will ferret through all of this craziness that we're going through? There are plenty of people in their income bracket that would be glad to pay for that wine.
Oh my gosh.
That's a beautiful wine.
Yeah.
And that's the key. You gotta know if you're making Rolexes or Timexes. They all sell the same time.
That's another Hoover gem. When you talk about like the 11 sub AVAs and I have conversations with we brought up Gary Eberly a couple times here, someone who we both very much love, and you know him far better than I do, but I just have so much affinity for him as a friend and a person who helped like you build this area. But like you talked to him about the 11 AVAs, it's so different than when obviously you helped shape them, with some more. So when you like sit there side by side with someone like Gary Eberly and you talk about things, but obviously there's a little bit of a disagreement. Like he'd tell you, 11 AVA, come on with the sub AVA, but then like there's, like back in the day, he was like, we were talking about the York Mountain becoming a thing when Paso did, and how the dude had the chance to like become part of Paso. He was like, no, I think I'll say York. Now it's like the coolest decision ever because York Mountain is like on fire right now. It's
those are a lot of people don't know all the backstories of all of that. But I mean, Jerry Lohr had a vision, and he grabbed a bunch of us and said, and he was serious. He was like, we're doing it based on marketing, and our grandchildren, won't appreciate that. What we're really trying to do is, if we're going to really do it right, let's get together. And we used our own money. A lot of people don't know this story. So, and it was at Lohr. And I mean, it was all us old timers. There was about 50 of us at the first meeting. And when Jerry Lohr, I call him General. When Jerry Lohr calls you and tells you you're coming to a meeting, you're like, okay, what time? And it isn't, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I can't go on now. It's like, and so it was all of us, back in that era. And like I said, all of us, there wasn't that many. But, and it was West Side and East Side, and then both. It was a little heavier East Side, but it was both sides of the freeway. And I mean, we all had to cough up like $6,000, which was a lot of money back then. And it was everybody the same. I mean, not my little place was kicking in the same amount. But that was kind of the idea. Jerry said, we need $300,000, plus or minus. We're going to hire the scientist. We're going to do it right. We're going to have to draw some lines, and there's going to be some discussion about lines, but we're going to do it based on terroir.
Yeah.
And he was serious about the whole terroir thing. Anytime anybody get in the marketing drift, he'd get fired up. And if that's the reason there's a winery at Cal Poly now. I mean, when he sets his mind to get something done, it gets done. And so
beautiful. Did you get to work in that?
No.
Yeah.
So anyway,
not in its current state, at least.
So anyway, that's how it all got done. And I remember because I was responsible for sort of tours of the scientists, because we did hire a couple of really good scientists. It takes forever. It's got to be approved, by the
bureaucratic.
It takes forever. And so anyway, it was cool that we really held true to the climatic. That's why when I taste this wine, I mean, it makes me feel good that there's a difference between Willow Creek and El Pomar, and day in, day out, if you have me grow grapes all day long, I will tell you, that we should not be growing too much Mourvedre Grenache. And you get Steve Cass, if he was honest, to tell you the same damn thing. But in the reality, neither should they be trying to grow Cab Franc or Cabernet. And anybody that's really honest, I mean, they can do it. But, the reason Dow was so successful, they knew to go buy it over at our area and make some great wines.
Well, Justin's got a big property over there.
It's right down the street from me, giant big property. Yeah. So anyway, but that's the AVA story. And I mean, where would we be if it wasn't for, and it was I had to go home and tell my wife, she's like, well, how did it turn out? I said, well, I'm not sure. But I said, we got to write a check tomorrow for $6,000. And he's got an up and studied, winery. And my wife was like, well, we don't want to be part of that. And I was like, no, we are part of that. We don't get a choice,
What is, so you sit in where? Templeton Gap or
we're in Willow Creek?
Willow Creek.
Willow
Dead
Creek?
center.
It's like, it's
pretty much.
It's one of those things that, because we've been doing specials on the 11 sub AVAs, and they're all very special. They're all very, very interesting. I mean, shoot, we just did an episode with Nicholas Miller and Natalie Brown on Highland, and talk about way the F out there, and not even a tasting room to be said for, but what a story, what a whole, the French camp.
Oh, the French camp vineyard's amazing. It's I mean, I've been lucky enough to make wine from there.
Creek, So all of our 11 sub AVAs are worthy of story and the lore that's behind them. But for some reason, Willow Creek, and I'm sure it's because some of these, beautiful names that came before you, but this beautiful climate and soils that it enjoys. But no, it's not a bad thing to be in the Willow Creek. That's already
I mean, I joke. We started on second base with the property. In the Willow Creek. I mean, everyone who planted these varieties in that area, they just nailed it. And I mean, we're just hoping to just take that torch and keep it going.
I spend a lot of time with guests, doing tours and doing stuff. And I always like to, take them to the Globe, which is my favorite thing to do. And I take them up on top of, I'm about the same height as Dow Mountain, so I drive up on top of mine. People think, I'm like, yeah, we're looking over.
It's still on some quads if you do that.
Yeah, and it's so fun. And what the reality is, we're 20 miles from the ocean, and we are the most marine influenced of any of the AVAs.
No, more than Adelaida?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, read it. And the reason is, I'm a fisherman.
Yeah.
We should have named it the Cayucas Gap, would have been a better description, because the gap in the mountain range, if you go out into the Estero Bay, which is the big bay, not Morro Bay, but right outside of Cayucas, that mountain range gets as skinny as it gets, and it's got a gap. And the wind that blows off the ocean that's 62 degrees today. It was freaking cold at my
Cold,
house
yeah.
today, really cold. And so the freeness of that wind coming down through that Templeton stretch and out by me, it's way different than Adelaide and that, as far as just in that little, crazy difference. Now, they get 3 times as much rain as us, which is the biggest difference. Rhone varietals do not like to be abused very much as it relates to rain. They need a certain amount of rain. So if you get 25 inches of it a year, it helps, versus, so they'll get 30 inches where I'll get 10.
How would you equate the marine influence between a U and a York Mountain?
So
that's probably a little bit more, right?
If you take the globe and really look at it, or do Google Earth, which is a lot of fun. If you do Google Earth,
I love Google Earth,
and you'll see the.
You ever taken a gummy and went on Google Earth? I'm kidding.
No, you'll see the gap in the mountain range,
right?
And then it runs right down the valley by Templeton, by us, out to Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And so the reason we're so influenced, and if you drive a tractor like I do, I mean, the wind will switch in a hurry. It's exactly like Hawaii or anywhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping it. So it doesn't make it better. It just is what it is. And so we get full-blown 45-degree swings a lot. And that's what makes our area. And like, it's been foggy every day. I mean, every day. And then it burns off, and then the wind blows like a sucker.
I love that.
And then it cools down. Yeah, so like right now, I looked before the show started. It's 93 at my place right now. And by tonight at 7, it will be 64 or so.
It was 57 degrees when I got to the winery this morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I love to do with people is say, because they don't get it still. And I say, okay, let's take the globe, let's spin it on that latitude longitude line, and let's go to Tuscany. And they're like, okay. And I said, guess what? It's about the same distance to Rome as it is from my place, to the ocean.
Right.
That's the Mediterranean Sea. It's the exact same temperature.
Right.
The reality for us winemakers, if we don't have old Mother Nature helping us out a little bit, we can make wine all over the world.
Sure.
The great wines of the world, the consistent great wines of the world, and I don't want to make anybody mad, but having that 57 to 63 degree water. There's a reason that wine grapes aren't grown around the corner from Point Conception going down to Santa Barbara. I mean, they might be, but the water's 75 down there.
Yeah.
You're growing avocados down there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a farmer,
Great
one of
point.
the things that they did better
So it's the
than
cool water.
Absolutely.
It's the cool
year round.
Yes.
Even in the middle.
Well, it's funny because I grew up in Southern California and I go to Zuma all the time, and you'd walk right into the water and you would do your thing. I mean, it's not like Hawaii, but it's still, you got to get used to it. But it's still, you come up here and you see the dolphins, the sea lions, you see all the beautiful, of course, it's a much more beautiful coast than Southern California. But man, the water is like 55, 57. Like, whoa.
We can't ripen the grapes without the heat. I mean, we can, but we can't keep them going slow without the cool. So the diurnal swing is throughout the whole area is what makes it. And that's why San Luis is such a different AVA than us.
Yeah.
They're closer to the ocean.
True.
Yeah. I mean, they can't warm it up. I mean, at some point, you're only 8 miles to that same 58 degree.
Well, how do you pull off Pinot Noir there where you are?
I don't.
I know how they do. Did you say you're doing Pinot?
I don't know. No, I refer to the Pinot Gris as
Pinot Gris. Oh, my bad.
No, and
when you said Pinot earlier, I'm thinking he was talking about Pinot Noir.
No, I was referring to the technique.
Oh, God, my bad.
So you take Chardonnay, you put it in barrels, you turn around and put Pinot in it. That's the traditional technique.
Got it. My bad.
Of Burgundy. Yeah. So.
Let's talk about what wine do you have in your glass? We need to pour some of the Stillwater wine. I got it in mine. Tell me about this red wine we got right here. This is one of your popular ones too, Mr. Paul.
Yeah. So
Hoover.
Yeah. So I do, because of persuasion from winemakers over the years, I grow 14 varietals of grapes, and there's a good 6 of them that were by up-and-coming winemakers like him telling me, I need more Primitivo, I need more Zinfandel, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And I'm like, well, will you buy it? And they're like, yeah. And I mean, that's the old-fashioned way we used to run the business, And so I'd plant 2 acres of this and 3 acres of this and whatever. Well, you asked me what I do changes. I mean, we don't need 14 varietals on our ranch, but I do love a GSM. Ours is so radically different than that one, that, just because of the terroir. And the grapes don't like it there, so you don't want to do too much of it. But this wine was created when I realized that winemaking was a very physical sport, in washing, tanks and doing this and doing that. And
You
so,
spend most of your time cleaning.
yes, absolutely.
We're just fancy janitors and plumbers.
Yeah. And electricians, by the way.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And so anyway, I thought, well, okay, I've got to start. And part of this, Terry and I were very similar in ways, very passionate about our wives and taking care of them. And it was kind of our dream. And they're like, okay, if you die, what the hell am I going to do with this place? And so, I thought I got to get some winemakers in here that at least I can pass on the recipes, which, it's not, I describe it like music. If you take 5 people and you hand them a guitar and one plays country and you tell them to sing this song with this guitar, and then they hand it to a rock star, same song, same guitar, and then they hand it to class, nobody's a better musician, but all those styles are going to be greatly different. And so, I think that's when you kind of start having fun as a winemaker, where you realize, okay, I've told Robert Parker to his face twice he's full of shit. It's not a good idea, by the way. I wouldn't recommend that.
Report, go for it.
We got 83s forever.
Yeah, exactly. Because he would be giving wines, those ones we were talking about
You
earlier.
said in person to him?
Absolutely.
And what was his? I never met him, so tell me.
So you want a story? You like
I
a
want.
story?
I want to know.
It's
what
a
happened when he
classic
said-
story. So this is a classic story.
I just want to know the reaction.
So we know, but it comes back. So Larry Shupnick,
Yeah. Oh, right.
wired in the hotel wine industry, president of the Schindler Tours, which is a big giant.
Yeah,
food
sure.
wine. He's, huge. So, I got in the wine business, and I used to work for him for years and years. And so he owned the Inn at Morro Bay at the time. And one day he calls me and he says, Hoover, and I'm still CEO of Morrison Garetano, and I'm working in the afternoons out there for my passion, And so he calls me, he goes, hey, I got you an appointment. I'm like, with who? And he goes, with Robert Parker. This is a true story. And I'd only been in the business, and I kind of knew who he was. And I said, well, who's he, Larry? I mean, I'm busy. I don't have time. And he goes, no, you asshole. He goes, I got you a private invitation. He's tasting wines out at our banquet room. And I told him that I want him to meet you. And I said, you're for real. And he goes, yeah, I'm for real. So get off your high horse, get your wines, and go out there and pour them to this guy, because Larry was just loving my wines. I said, okay. So I didn't have time to change clothes, do nothing, and I'm in shirt and tie. And I was leaving Morris Garetano, so I blow out there in the afternoon. And you got to picture this. He's in a banquet room, and he's like the queen bee, and there's like 1 million people bringing him wine. And
Trillion bottles
oh,
around him.
Jesus, everywhere. And so I come walking in, and people are like, who's this dude, They're thinking I'm the general manager of the hotel.
Yeah.
And so finally they come over. I said, oh, I have an appointment with Mr. Parker. And the guy kind of looks at me, and he goes, like, nobody has an appointment with Mr. Parker. He laughs at me, he goes, well, who are you? And I told him, and he goes, okay, stand, it's like, you stay here. I said, okay. So he goes over there. Pretty soon, Parker waves me over, and I come over there. And this is our first meeting, and I'm an up-and-coming, passionate winemaker, a little too full of myself. But, I'm bringing a lot too full of myself. So I'm like, well, here, Mr. Parker. And he looks up at me, and he goes, you don't look like a winemaker, and he gives me this big, it was already like the worst, And I said, really? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, what's a winemaker look like, Mr. Parker? And so anyway, that was our first introduction.
Oh, God.
So then, and so then time went on, I had won some pretty big scores, because the day you had to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have to do it anymore. I should probably do again. But according to Gary Everly, I do. We entered contests for the first time in 12 years this year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we already got two gold medals.
There you go.
Our reflections in our clone got gold medals in state, gold medals here, gold medals everywhere. So Gary Every told me I had to do that.
He's a big fan of that.
Yeah, he is. And
He says Americans love gold medals.
And he's right. Yeah. So I listened to the old man. So anyway, after I was at one of the pourings with him, and he gave this, and no offense to the big giant, Syrahs, but it was like, 17% alcohol. And he gave it like a 97.
Yeah.
And for those of us that are winemakers, and I said, I told him, I said, Robert, I said, I agree that's a huge extracted wine, but you need like a warning label on it that in 3 years it ain't going to be worth shit. I mean, no way can that wine be stable. It's not high enough to be port. And he got mad at me. And I said, well, so then I don't know, it's like 2 or 3 years later, he came up because you remember me. I said, I think we know each other now.
That's great.
But I learned early on that unless you're distributed, and so, but I just, it's not me. It's not, and it's a lot of work, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not dissing it at all. All the guys that ultimately are successful on that side of the
Right.
marketing arena. No, you got to work your ass off. You got to travel a lot. You got to do all that. So I'm not being disrespectful. I'm not being disrespectful
No.
to the winemakers. I'm
No,
not so
not at all.
sure about
I
that.
just think like
Who makes them God?
like you try and take that story and bring it into today, and that's Kyle Jury telling Jeb Dunnick
Yeah.
I got this. You know?
So there was a reason I kind of wanted to get out of the contest. So that was the point. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, you better not enter your wines anymore. You're going to get a 64. You're not even going to get anything.
A 64 was funny because back in the day, Paul, like you know, people would put on their bottles like 88, 89. Like, I mean, if you get anything less than a 90, I don't know that you're even advertising that
No.
anymore,
No.
right? I mean, like, what's a good? Have you done any scores yet?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about some of them.
I mean, we've been fortunate. I mean, we've some 93s, 94s.
Yeah,
that
90, like you said. I mean, luckily we've gotten. I mean, I say luckily because I agree. I mean, it's all kind of subjective.
Depends.
But,
Yeah, sure, but that can move the needle a little bit.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah,
can move the
especially
needle lot.
a big one.
So good. These wines, awesome. All these wines today, these 4 wines, just so good. How do we taste the wines of Truss?
You need to come check it out. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to come visit us. Check out. We just finished our remodel this spring, so we were, like I said, we kind of started on second base with the property and the tasting room and the winery, but nothing wrong with what was previously there, but we sort of kind of gave it a little bit of a refresh and kind of brought some fresh energy and a new aesthetic to the property. And so we're kind of excited to start unveiling that. And so there is a new remodel to the tasting room in the winery.
Cool. Do you need an appointment to taste there?
No. I mean, we're in no position to be turning anyone away.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, if you want to make one, great, but you don't need an
Yeah, it's always preferred just because we can make sure that the experience is a
dialed
lot
in.
better. But like I said, if the gate's open, we're pouring wine, and
Sweet.
and the gate's always open.
Yeah, love it. I'll put all the links in the show notes. How do we taste Still Waters, my friend?
So basically, we went to a 5-day model just to keep the best staff. I mean, again, you in this business, I mean, I think you can make great wine. If you're going to go DTC and you're going to have a tasting room, you got to have the best staff. And then you got to make sure that staff's doing really well, meaning making good tips and good environment and good everything. So we were challenged with the 7 days as some of the other locations started shutting down.
Sure.
And so it was
Restaurants have been doing that.
It was a little bit
So
of
what do we do? Wednesday, Sunday, Tuesday, Saturday?
We're closed Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
And our busiest days in many cases are Monday, Thursday, especially wine club members and all that. But
so Monday is a big one.
Monday's a big day because the big time wine buyers, the more people that are in the business, they rarely want to go out on a Saturday.
Yes.
But if they're in your wine club, that's part of it too, is wine club support. You got to, so we're open 5 days a week, and, I like that. And, we're across the street from Rava. Rava and I are doing kind of a fun thing this summer. God bless our county, but they're putting an $8 million bridge over a $500,000 ditch right down the road from me. And so the road, Creston Road, is closed for
No way.
3 months. And so we're the last stop.
Were they doing it because of the rain? Like every time it rains, it gets weird there?
Yeah, they're doing it, God bless FEMA.
Yeah.
But when we have, no, but it's true. I mean, I'm not a government kind of guy, as you well know, but when the bridge sunk a little bit in the big rains of 03, the big rains, I mean, Cripple Creek and everything was flooded.
03 or 23?
23, excuse me. Yeah, 23. And so they got disaster relief, which, was $6 million, but they had to spend it to get it. So they couldn't get in the creek for environmental reasons because it was flowing.
Yeah.
So they had to do a temporary fix. And then lo and behold, they either let the $6 million go, meaning the county of San Luis Obispo, or there's a 20% match is the way FEMA works. So they matched it with $1.8 million. And so there's an $8 million bridge going across what nobody even knows what it is. I mean, they had to come up with it's Quail Creek, which they didn't even have a name. When it first started flooding, I called the county. I was like, "What the hell? It's just a ditch through Gallo." I'm serious.
Yeah.
but it's a serious ditch, And
it's got creek status now.
Yeah. So when the county, got me involved in saying, "Okay, we got to do this, Paul. We're going to do it," and I'm like, "Why? It's fine." I have pictures of it when it flows like up to my knees. And yet. The county works told me, well, the 500-year floods show it 3 foot above Creston Road. I said, well, then buy a bunch of boats. Because I said, if it's there, we don't need a bridge at that point. Anyway, so fun thing to announce, though. So Rav and I, being at the end of the road,
Yeah.
we got together. And so we're sharing wine club benefits between the two
That's cool.
properties.
Totally.
And so if you're a member of Rava or a member of Still Waters, since, we're at the end of the road, we got to get them motivated,
Yeah.
And so you can get wine club benefits at either property.
Cool.
Yeah. And so
That's cool. I love Chad and Lauren too. They're
and
awesome.
different demographics,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got the boomers and, I'm not saying the boomers aren't drinking lots of sparkling, but
Yeah.
it's a cool marriage because we'll have some boomers go over there and fall in love with some of their sparkling. And I was their first customer when they opened,
Yeah,
because
they're
I
cool
was
people.
making sparkling up at Napa, and I'm like, I don't need this. Yeah, really, really cool people. So
Yeah.
we've done a sparkling. They've done it for us. My oaky term is they sparkle it for us.
Nice.
We make a dry wine, but yeah, that's fun.
I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. We're going to put all the links to the show notes to, of course, Truss, of course, Still Waters. I can't thank you enough for just sharing these stories and hanging out with me. This has been rad. I love it. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
All right,
Thanks, Adam.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Paul.
Give me that moonshine, we'll get by. We pass on round till the job is done. Camped out in the trees, we'll simplify good company.
I love it. There you go, right? Just two winemakers at different points in their journey, but speaking the same language. Paul has lived through the cycles. He knows what it feels like when the phones slow down ringing and what it feels like when the market shifts, the inventory stacks up and every decision gets heavier and heavier. While Kyle building trust right in the middle of that reality. And he's not pretending the timing is easy. He's betting on great farming, great wine, a real story, and a strong community, because all that still matters. I think he's right. Because this region has never been built by people waiting for perfect conditions. All right, what do you say we head into our Travel Paso Spotlight? This one is pure summer. Talking about concerts in the park, free live music every Thursday evening from 6 to 8, right in the middle of downtown City Park on the square. And if you've ever done one of these, here's the vibe. You throw a blanket, a couple chairs in the back of the car, grab some friends, maybe a little picnic, find your patch of grass under the trees, and just let that Paso evening do the rest. Sun starts to drop, the heat finally loosens its grip, that gazebo lights up, band kicks in, kids dancing like nobody has invented embarrassment yet. The grown-ups got their glass in hand, and for a couple of hours, the whole town feels like one big backyard. The 2026 series presented through a partnership between Paso Recreation Services and the Paso REC Foundation. Also, J. Lore and Firestone Walker Brewing Company. And there's still plenty of music ahead this summer. We're about halfway through. July 16th, July 30th, August 6th, 13th. The season closes August 20th with Imua. They are incredible. I love Imua. Real like R&B and soul. Bringing them to the park, that is going to be rad. Here's what makes this whole thing even better. The music is completely free. J-Lore wine, Firestone Walker beer, water, soda available for purchase, and the net proceeds from those beverage sales support the Paso REC Foundation. And that foundation's been working since 1999 to improve the parks, programs, trails, playgrounds, and public spaces that make Paso feel like Paso. And when the hat comes around during the concert, throw something in it. Those donations support the Recreation Services Scholarship Fund, helping more local kids and families participate in recreational programs, regardless if they can afford them or not. So your glass of wine isn't just making the band sound better, it's helping the community play, grow, stay connected. Concerts in the Park runs again through August 20th, Thursdays, 6 to 8 p.m., downtown City Park. Bring a blanket, bring a chair, bring the family, bring the friend who always says they need to get out more, and come experience one of those easy, beautiful Paso nights that reminds you a great destination isn't just about what you can visit, it's about what you get to join in on. Yeah? And thanks to Travel Paso for bringing us the Travel Paso Spotlight for everything else happening around town. Where to stay, what to taste, what to eat, and what to put on that Paso calendar. Visit travelpaso.com. All right, going to do it for this one. Big thanks again to Paul Hoover of Still Waters, also Kyle Jury of Truss. Two very different generations, two very different paths. One hell of an honest conversation about where Paso has been and where it all goes from here. Go see them. Go taste those wines. All right. Where Wine Takes You is executive produced by Joel Peterson and Paso Wine. Associate producer is Krista Smith. The podcast is recorded, edited, and produced by yours truly. Original music on the show, Good Company, performed by Moonshiner Collective. Stream them wherever you get your music. Also, moonshinercollective.com. They got their Under the Moon concert series, which is fantastic. You can get tickets for their first one, moonshinercollective.com. Blanket, rolling hills of slow, like on your way to the beach, outdoor. Oh my God, it's such a great time. Moonshinercollective.com. Definitely, if you're around, check out their Under the Moon concert series. You can also head to AdamOnTiel.com, hit the Connect tab, drop me a line. I also got my other shows up and Adam, my daily podcast radio show, The Pour, and more. AdamOnTiel.com, and you can link right up. And I appreciate you connecting here. Thank you so much for also rating, reviewing, subscribing to this podcast wherever you choose to listen to it, sharing it with a friend. I can't thank you enough. I'm your host, Adam Montiel. Until next time, let's lift that glass, put some nice chill white wine. It's getting warm in Paso, I'll tell you that. And here's to strong foundations, bold blueprints, and the beautiful things we build when experience, ambition, and sometimes straight crazy share the same table. May the wine have structure, the stories have soul, and the journey always surprise you with where wine takes you.
Give me that moonshine, we'll get by. We pass all around till the job is done. Camped out in the trees, it will simplify good company. Give me that moonshine, we'll get by. We pass all around till the job is done. Camped out in the trees, it will simplify good company. Give me that moonshine, we'll get by. We pass all around till the job is done. Camped out in the trees, it will simplify good company. Give me that moonshine, we'll get by. We pass on round till the job is done. Camped out in the trees, we'll simplify good company.